to thank them for that. We also have some other corporate partners that do a really, really good job of really being the backbone and supporting all that we do. Baltimore County Public Library, the Community College of Baltimore County, BGE, Port of Baltimore, Sheridan Baltimore North, Peak Performance Accounting, T. Rowe Price, McCormick and Company, UMBC, Comcast, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Freedom Federal Credit Union, and Townsend University. Please give them a round of applause. We have some new members and some first-time attendees. So if you're a first-time member or if you're a new attendee, please raise your hand. I'm going to give you an opportunity to say a little about yourself as well as your business. We got a nice little group right over here, so I'm going to start kind of on the left, right over here. Ms. Ferguson.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Brent. I am with Elevation Global Media Group. I'm the CEO, All Things Media. We also help you with podcasts and also TV production and live streaming, as well as if you need an entire brand makeover or just a new way you want to present your business, we're here for you.
So thank you. Right over here in the middle.
You're tall. So. How you doing? My name is Brandon Jackson. I'm with Baltimore Gas and Electric. Sorry to have my back to you guys over here. And I'm the manager for external affairs. So glad to be here with you today.
Awesome. Appreciate you.
Hey, good morning. I'm Colin Murray. I'm a former CFO with manufacturing-based companies. Just started out on my own with a consultancy, Your Weekly CFO, offering fractional CFO work to small mid-sized businesses. So fairly new to the Baltimore area in general, so thankful to be here today. Thank you.
Awesome. You get clap. It's all right. You give it love out here. Wait, awesome. I got one other question first. Where did you come from and where's that accent? You got it. We got questions. Stand up, sir.
I was in North Carolina before, but it's not in North Carolina. From the UK originally, but moved around a number of states.
Awesome. Don't stay here too long. We might have you hosting a game show or something like that. All right. From Carrington and Company?
Yes, I'm Juliana Jones. I'm a senior associate with Carrington and Associates, and we do public relations and external affairs throughout the state of Maryland. And we're always in Annapolis, so if you need anything in Annapolis, we're the ones to call.
Appreciate you. Right over here.
And Juliana just stole my thunder now. My name is Darrell Carrington. It's a pleasure to be here. We're new members of the Chamber and very proud to be a part of this organization. There's tremendous potential here in this region. As Juliana said, we're a bipartisan public affairs government relations firm. We've been around since 2006. We've worked on pretty much the highest profile issues in Annapolis that face us, from marriage equality, trans rights, raising the minimum wage, which I know that that's something that we have to talk about here, and repealing the death penalty. And by the way, 66% of you also said, hey, Darrell Carrington, legalize it. So I also have worked on cannabis policy, and I've briefed all of the county executives in the state of Maryland on what to look forward to as we're doing legalization. So I have a lot of fun with it. We have a great company. I also always travel with my lawyer, which is Maria Teresa Carrington. She's a general counsel for our office in Hermosillo, Mexico, which Juliana has never been to, so that's why she doesn't talk about it. But we work across the entire United States, and we're doing a lot of international work. And I also would like to thank Governor Moore for selecting our very good friend Susan Lee to be the Secretary of State, and we'll be talking about our sister cities programs as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Nicely. Over here, any other first-time attendees?
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Lamiko. My friends call me Nico. I'm from Grand Canyon University. Go Lopes. Good, right? I specialize in helping adults with their career. I'm a little nervous. Please bear with me. I just told her that. I said, just stand up and talk.
You're with friends.
Yeah, right? I'm just a little bit nervous. I specialize in helping the adults, teachers, paraprofessionals, gather their certificates and grow in their career fields. And that's what we're here to do for our teachers. Bring them back.
Thank you. Right over here in the middle.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lydia Rubin. Rosenthal. I'm a financial advisor with Raymond James, and I actually just moved here on Saturday. My husband.
Wow, welcome.
Yes, thank you. My husband coaches baseball at Towson University, so.
Woo, go Tigers.
Go Tigers. Opening weekends and 2 weekends, but it's in South Carolina, so. But everyone, come to the games. It's gonna be so fun. I'll be there.
Good.
But I work with small companies. I love working with women, really any age, just trying to teach people about finance. My dad was a financial advisor. He passed away 6 years ago, so just trying to follow in his footsteps and really help people be able to plan for any sort of emergency, like my mom had planned for her when he passed away. So that's what I love to do.
Great.
So awesome. Welcome to our community. We definitely appreciate it. Sir, to the left.
I'm going to come out from behind the pillar. I'm Steve Cordell. I'm the owner of EcoCool HVAC. We've been servicing this area for 12 to 13 years. We specialize in heating, cooling, refrigeration, commercial refrigeration anyhow. But we also help a lot of processing plants, manufacturing. We like to be part of their team, and we're an extension of their facilities. So, Steve Cordell, EcoCool HVAC.
Awesome. Welcome back. Anyone else here in the middle? Anyone in the back? All right. Thank you once again. We want to welcome all of our new members and any first-time attendees. We have some other events I definitely want to put on our agenda. We have our mega networking happening on February 9th here at the Sheraton Baltimore North. We have, I think, 1 or 2 tables available, so if you still want to take advantage of those exhibit tables, please take advantage of those. We're going to have 250 plus businesses in one particular place, all representing Baltimore County. Please put that on your agenda, February 9th. And we're also super excited about the first annual 2023 Baltimore County Civic Speed. We're doing that with Baltimore County Public Schools. We're looking for great sponsors for that particular event. Think about it as an essay oratory contest for social studies. It's for all middle schools all across Baltimore County. They're going to be submitting essays. We're going to pick the 10 best winners, and then we're going to do a live event on May 6th at Chapel Valley Elementary School here in Baltimore County. The grand prize winner wins $1,000. Second prize wins $500. Third prize wins $250. And that winner actually goes on to our state competition that's going to be ran by the Maryland Chamber of Commerce, held at my alma mater, Morgan State University, in June. So that'll be super exciting. They're going to win another cash prize, and then that winner goes on to the national competition in DC. So it's a really, really good opportunity to really talk about what's happening with our civics, talking about what's happening with our kids, and we're giving away cash. Like, you can't beat that. A kid might pay his mom's rent that month. So we're super excited about that. So please put that on your agenda as well. But I want to get to our speaker. We have Darius Arani, the chief economist for Towson University, is going to give our financial outlook for Baltimore County. So please give him a round of applause. Darius.
Well, thank you. Too many things in my hand. Well, you had me a couple of years ago. I will say all the data has changed, but the bad jokes still remain, so be prepared. So, a lot of things going on. Challenging economy, right? So we've got, war in Ukraine, we've got inflation, we've got labor shortages, which many of you are probably facing, trying to find qualified workers for all your positions. We've got issues around interest rates, we've got child care issues. So there's a lot of things that are going on in the economy, both here in Maryland, in Baltimore County, as well as nationally. We like to recycle, reuse. So a couple of years ago, we came across the idea that we're going to sort of theme our presentations called the Jumanji. We did the original one with a board game, roll the dice and kind of stuff. That's a little, low tech. We decided we'd upgrade to the, the PC version. Though this is probably pretty, out of date given that's a CRT display. So nevertheless, because again, like Jumanji the game, there's a lot of surprise that we've kind of encountered throughout the economy. Presentation's broken up into about 6 broad areas. I'll kind of go over each one, kind of really talk about the national economy, what's driving it, and that then filters down into Maryland and to some degree to Baltimore County. So, the numbers have been sort of, hiding some of the challenge in our economy. We see most recent GDP growth, stronger than people expected. Most economists are predicting about 2.8, 2.7% GDP. We're at 2.9%. It's good. 3% plus is usually considered to be sort of, better than good. But generally speaking, we're in a period where we've faced shortages in labor. We face shortages in goods, chips, for example, in some cases, as well as sort of we've had this uncertainty around a war. We've had interest rates rise. And in spite of that, we still find ourselves with a growing economy. So there's a lot of things that we're throwing at the economy, and somehow it seems fairly resilient. We're a nation of see it, want it, buy it. 70% of our economic activity is driven by households, so your decisions about purchases are driving the majority of our economy. So when you get nervous, the economy gets a little bit wonky. Most recent data shows about 2.1%, although we did see that in December, consumer spending did go down a bit. Wasn't as big as it once was. And I will say, interestingly, 2,400 new retail establishments net were established in 2022. So oftentimes we hear about the demise, Bed Bath & Beyond is going out, but oftentimes we see that new retail establishments are coming back online, different, remaking themselves, new, obviously with cannabis kind of becoming a retail type of thing, some additional opportunities. But generally speaking, when we talk about the death of the brick and mortar, not necessarily so. It's sort of a bit overhyped to some degree. The majority of sales still come through brick and mortar sales. It's very, we do rely on that. The tremendous growth is typically from the online side. And even, for example, Carvana is an example of an online retailer, a used car retailer. They are struggling. They've managed to lose money, tremendous amount of money, as well as basically see their stock price plummet, so they're in the process of layoff. So sometimes online works, sometimes in-person works, but expect to see a mix as we go forward. Investment. So, this is sort of not the sort of the investment that some people might think about, sort of the Wall Street investment. This is really business investment. So anything that's used to produce or provide a good or service, that's considered to be investment. So if you buy trucks, if you buy plant and equipment, that all gets lumped into investment, as well as housing. Now I will show in a couple later slides why we're seeing that a little bit flat going forward. But that has been a bit slow. Also inventory gets counted in this as well. Government spending, again, for Maryland, we have a tremendous amount of economic activity associated with government spending. About 10 to 15% of our gross state product is linked with government spending, so federal government spending, I should say. 10% of our workforce is directly employed by the federal government, and probably another 5 to 7% are indirectly supported by that. It's contractors, other things outside the gate type of things. But we did see it grow compared to years past, or quarters past, I should say. Obviously, we are, compared to where we were pre-pandemic, we are significantly higher in terms of government spending than we were before. Trade deficit has declined tremendously. We have 1.3 trillion. Look at sort of pre-COVID, about $800 billion. Half of the imported goods that come into the U.S. are what we consider to be intermediate goods. So they're the goods that are used in the production of another good. So for example, if you look at your car, your tires may come from Japan or something like that. That's going to be an intermediate good, because until the car is sold, that doesn't get counted into GDP. So oftentimes, much of our production processes rely on imported goods coming in, and that's why we have this number kind of going up. So it's not all Gucci bags and Rolex watches. Okay, so let's dispel that myth. We're not all splurging on that. Some of us are, but some of us aren't. But generally speaking, that's typically half our imported goods are coming from those types of goods, intermediate goods. Maryland, just to kind of give us some context, about 1.8% growth in gross state product. Better than it was in years past, but that certainly is a good number to have. We're not a barn-burning type of an economy. We don't have a lot of high tech. We think about sort of Silicon Valley, growth in those areas, North Carolina with abundant land. We tend to be, again, a very government-oriented, federal government-oriented type of a thing. Our IT is around cybersecurity. We don't have a lot of social media companies here in Maryland or large presence of them. So we tend to be, so our IT, I will say we're somewhat fortunate because some of the layoffs that are occurring in some of these social media companies probably won't impact us as much as they do in some of the other parts of the country. But we're not going to see the barn burner growth. So consumer sentiment, this is the University of Michigan Sentiment Survey. Baseline is 100. And you can sort of see that even during the pandemic, we were a bit more happier than we are now. Part of this might be, we've seen rising prices, so every day you're reminded that Gas prices have gone up, or at least we're going up. You're reminded when you go buy eggs, how expensive eggs are. You're reminded when you pay your monthly rent, how expensive it is. So that kind of weighs in on the consumers. Obviously, there's concern about uncertainty. So you've got war in Ukraine. Where is that going to go? How is that going to impact us? So holistic. Now, it has risen since the summer, but or since December, I should say. So it's generally peaking up, but it is still considerably lower than it was even in the heart of the pandemic. So that is a consideration. The consumers are feeling a little bit nervous about the economy. And again, when consumers feel nervous, they pull back their spending. They only buy what they need, not what they want. National unemployment numbers kind of going down now. I think one of the things that we need to understand is this sort of hides a lot of bad news. So unemployment, to be unemployed, you are out of work and actively looking for work. If you are not actively looking for work, or if you're in your basement playing Call of Duty, you're not in the labor force. If you're not in the labor force, you don't get counted. So what we're seeing here is, yes, we're getting tremendous low unemployment as people basically find the jobs that are in the labor force looking for work. But those individuals who are in your basement playing Call of Duty after graduating from college, say, they are not captured in here. Or individuals who have dropped out of the labor force entirely for whatever reason, financially decided to retire early, or they've decided to basically go work the gig economy or what have you. They're not going to be captured. Underemployment is individuals who want to work full-time, but really only can work part-time for whatever reason, as well as being perhaps not as attached to the labor force, so perhaps they're looking for a job not in the past week, but the past month. So we've all encountered inflation. We've seen it every day where we drive our cars, or at least earlier on this last year. We see with egg prices going up tremendously. Again, some of those things are regional. So what we're seeing in some states is that services go up because cost of living is going up, and primarily services are comprised of salary type of jobs. Whereas some areas where there's more goods, the prices aren't rising as much. So it is going to be a regional, so it's both geographical as well as the type of good or service that is being sold can vary across state lines, or even in some instances within states. But generally speaking, our inflation rate has kind of slowed down a bit. As you can sort of see here, we've looked at Baltimore County, TSA. It's flattened out a little bit, not rising as much, but you can sort of see that September 20 on, how it's rapidly been rising.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Can we go back to the employment thing
Sure.
for a minute? And I apologize. I was trying to get your attention, but you were.
Okay.
I didn't want to interrupt you. And I don't know if you were allowed to ask questions.
Well, no, you're not. Go ahead. For Bill Rights, I'll give you an answer.
Thank you. We go back a little bit. So, when you mentioned if you're not in the labor market, where is everybody going? Where are people that are not working and it's not accounted for?
So if they're not working, so for example, and I'll talk about the labor force participation rate, but generally speaking, individuals 16 to plus, you just can fall into various categories. So not everyone, it's not going to be 100% labor force participation rate. So if you take the labor force divided by the population age 16 to 64, it's not going to be 100%. It's around 60, 65%. Some people are in school. Some people are homemakers. Some people are in the military. Some people are guests of the state or federal government. So they're not going to be in the labor force.
Okay.
So by that default, they're going to be out. What we have seen, though, is probably a decline. I'll show the numbers, about 2 to 3% decline in percentage points in labor force participation rate. So it went from 65% to about 62%. So that's enough to make it difficult to find workers. Because that's where the issue is. And so those individuals, we don't know where those individuals gone. Now they might have gone where they might be retired early. So when during the pandemic, the home prices ratcheted up, equities markets ratcheted up, they cashed out, said we're done, we're moving to Montana, we're done with this city life, we're moving there. Some people said, you know what, I'm going to go on the gig economy, I'm just going to go do work part-time, make some money that way, not be just part-time work, or even less than part-time work. Some people decided, you know what, there's no jobs for me here, and therefore I'm just going to pretty much live off unemployment or what have you. There's issues around addiction issues. So in some places in the Midwest, there are plenty of workers, except they can't pass a drug test, and therefore they can't be insured, and therefore they can't work in manufacturing. So there's just a whole host of reasons. There's not one particular thing. what we've seen post-pandemic has been childcare has been a big issue, the availability of it, especially for individuals who are in the, so the state of Maryland provides a childcare scholarship for low-income households, depending upon how far you're away from the median household income. If you can't find childcare, you can't work. And so the other challenge is for some people who might have schedules that might be, day to day, it's difficult then to arrange for consistent childcare. And if it's not available, it becomes very, very challenging. So we're seeing people sitting on the sidelines because they can't get consistent childcare. We're seeing people sitting on the sidelines because they're out of the labor force for whatever reason. So does that?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm just going to ask you, is there a stat that recognizes how many people went into small business? Like BBJ has a listing of people that opened up businesses. Is there any kind of stat going back 3 or 4 years? How many people tried their own business? Like I mentor some students at the University of Baltimore, and they're coming out of there getting a part-time job, but then doing their own thing.
Right.
So I would be interesting to know if like the people that are not coming out of college or going through college, they work part-time, but then they do their own gig. It'd be interesting to know what that was 4 years ago in the Maryland area right here.
Yeah, I don't have that gig. I don't have that data with me. But that's something we can certainly.
Okay.
If you send me an email, I'll try and dig it up for you.
Thank you.
Well, while you're answering the question,
Are you
Just
you're
really
broken?
quick.
This is kind of it's like an entertainment thing, right? So I got time in. Yeah. Now you're busting it up. Go
no,
ahead.
I just, if you could go back to the GDP, for
Yeah,
Maryland
beginning.
specifically. No, just for Maryland.
Okay.
And just interestingly, we got invited to something with Governor Moore a couple weeks ago, and he was saying that Maryland is not doing very well versus the rest of the country with respect to GDP, and I was just wondering if you could share your thoughts.
It struggled, right? So if you start looking at the ones prior to the third quarter, and remember, this is third quarter of 22, so we're already about 3 months, a quarter, and a couple of months out. So yes, prior to that, you can sort of see that we're not setting the world on fire. And again, it's the type of jobs we typically have. We're not having go-go jobs. We're not having IT type of industries. So some of our IT specialists are on cybersecurity. So they're working for NSA, all those places, and really focusing on that. Those aren't hot growth markets. Those are really booming. I like to characterize Maryland as eds, beds, meds, and feds. So tourism obviously took a hit during the pandemic. It still struggles. Federal government, so you're not seeing huge growth. It's not a growth industry, we hope. And then meds, right? We have tremendous amount of hospitals, but again, these aren't sort of high growth industries. They're mature. They're going to grow, but they're not going to grow like say Facebook or social media companies or drug manufacturing companies or pharmaceuticals. We have a few of those. And then EDGE, so we have we have more than 16 institutes of higher education. Again, we're not a high growth industry. We'll spin out companies in some cases, but those won't be counted in education. They'll be counted in other sectors. The challenge with that is we spin out companies, we have to have them stay here. And the problem with Maryland is it's a wonderful state, and the tax model, its model used to be, if you can dream it, we can tax it. That has kind of gone down a little bit. But the other thing is that land is very expensive here. So we're not going to get large manufacturing facilities. We're not going to get large. So if you're looking for lower cost, land, oftentimes you go to Virginia, North Carolina, for those other things. So we're a higher cost state for all things. But I think one of the things that we can leverage is we're a highly educated state. And having all the institutes of higher learning means we have a higher than average number of people with college degrees as well as advanced degrees here in Maryland. So again, attracting companies who are looking for high value, low volume manufacturing, high value, low volume production tend to sort of gravitate here as well.
No, that's awesome. Okay. That explains a lot. Just as a follow-up, I'm today's years old that I found out that the military aren't counted in our labor force.
No.
Doesn't that just make our numbers ridiculous? I mean, there's a lot of people who wear a uniform.
Yeah, and again, it's a civilian labor force. So yeah.
Got it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I get back to my timing. I don't even know where I was. Okay, so I think I kind of landed on this. So yes, we're seeing some plateauing in the inflation rate, which again, we're still higher than we were pre-pandemic, and it's still causing the Fed to kind of lower or raise interest rates Obviously, yesterday they raised it a 0.25% to basically account for the fact that inflation is somewhat tempering. Again, their concern is too much and it will choke the economy, too little and it doesn't do anything. So they really want to be judicious in that, and that's why they're kind of stepping back a little bit on this. Wages, real wage growth, you can sort of see that, you know, at some point the CPU, Consumer Price Index, has been rising faster than the real wages have been rising. And that's wages accounting for inflation. But generally speaking, so people are not getting, you know, their wages are increasing, but there's not as much as they are for inflation. Obviously, one of the triggers, a lot of our shortages is the war in the Ukraine. So corn and grain are big exports from that country. To some degree, oil, I think Russia is about 10% of the oil market. That's been a concern. We've been fortunate that's rather mild winter, so the demand for natural gas hasn't been heavily consumed in Europe, or needed in Europe. And again, you know, you can sort of see the growth in the price of wheat and corn in the U.S. And again, it's a global market, right? So regardless of what, you know, whether we grow it or not, it's still a global market. So when they sell it, they're going to sell it at the world price. And corn is an input to everything from soda to your eggs, right? So you think about the chicken feed, that's driven by corn. So if the price of corn goes up, that necessarily means that the price of feed goes up, which also means that basically it's now more costly. And eggs are particularly interesting, I don't say interesting, but sad thing. So avian flu kind of hit eggs or chicken, hit the chicken market and wiped them out. And then also the price of basically all the inputs of corn, petroleum also impacted them as well. So price of eggs will probably continue to rise until such time that the avian flu, because once you have an outbreak of avian flu within a chicken group, you got to kill them all and then regrow or get new chickens, and they got to mature. And again, I'm not an expert on how long it takes. Cars, you go to a dealer and so average price of new cars around $45,000, $46,000. Now we've seen some slowdown in new car and used car prices, but generally speaking, they are higher than they were pre-pandemic. Again, a shortage of cars, again, driven by the fact that there's a shortage of chips, which means the production of new cars isn't as great as it was, which basically means the availability of off-lease cars goes down, so the certified used cars goes down, which means basically the used car market is suffering. So the prices have been kind of tempering a little bit, and I think part of that is because of higher interest rates, right? So now the note to get a car is going to cost that much more. So you're paying more for a car, and you're paying more interest rate for that car loan. So this is a tough time to buy a car. And a couple of years ago, I was talking to a guy at Apple Ford, and I'm like, well, how many cars do you usually have? He said, we usually have pre-pandemic 300 to 400 on the lot. They said they got 30 to 40 new cars. So it is really a rat race. My brother works at a dealership in San Diego. They routinely put about a significant surcharge. So the new Hummer EV, I think they put about a $50K surcharge. So it went from about 110,000 to about 160,000. But again, you know,
I was going to get one, you know, but
it's a pretty cool car. You know, all electric. It does have the ability to do all four-wheel turns. But you know, again, it's supply and demand, right? So if there's not enough cars and you have more customers,
supply and demand.
So I know some manufacturers are trying to sort of step away from that a little bit and kind of maybe put the kibosh on that with dealers, but you know, at the end of the day, dealers got to make their margins.
Correct or not.
We think that supply chains are going to continue through 23, and it's across the board. So pharmaceuticals, computer chips, wood pulp are really challenges. You know, you have factory closures, and you know, because we have an extended supply chain that goes across the world, it also means that basically, if there's a hiccup in one part of the world, it does hurt us. The good news is, we're seeing some reshoring. So manufacturers coming back online are coming back to the U.S. The challenge is availability of workforce, because it's great to get the factories in here, but then the ability to hire new individuals. Price of oil has gone down. This is both good, right? From our point of view, when we see the gas price, yay, low oil prices. But from the producers, it's bad. I mean, Shell and Exxon, obviously had record profits last year, so they were doing well. But the production of oil is going to be really driven by that price per barrel. So when it goes down below a certain threshold, some fields become less profitable and unprofitable, and some new fields become, well, we'll just wait. So when the price of oil goes down, it really impacts our future ability to produce oil, because basically we may be shutting down fields, or we may not be opening new fields as such. We've been using the strategic petroleum reserves to kind of pull down. That has had an impact on prices, kind of tempering them a little bit here in the U.S. Gas prices have kind of gone down, though they are kind of going up again. So yeah, this is the question we want to ask: is are we going too hard on the interest rate rise, or are we going too low? Obviously, as everyone knows, yesterday the Fed raised about 0.25. I suspect their next meeting they're going to raise another 0.25 and continue that until basically they feel the economy has sort of come down. We sort of see how much they've risen. In years past, we were sort of in an anomaly since about 2009. Almost at 0% interest rates, Fed funds rates, I should say, and only recently we've seen that huge run up going forward. We've seen some the growth in the inverted yield curve. We've seen basically the short-term interest rates higher than the longer-term interest rates. Mortgage rates have kind of come down. At one point, it was about almost 7%. Now we're about 5.5%, 6%. Which is good for home buyers. This is an interesting chart, and I say that because, so this is the Great Recession that happened in 2008, 2009. You can see the tremendous drop-off in housing starts. We're still catching up, so there's not enough houses. This is about 5 million units short in the U.S. So when you think about why housing prices are going up, it is driven by demand to some degree, but it is also driven by the fact that there's just not enough housing units available for new household formation. So some of those kids who were in their basement, right around here, they graduated college, they went and played Call of Duty 3, the 2000, and they stayed there. Well, now they want to get out of the basement. They want their own place, but it's hard. It's harder and harder to find because there's not enough housing units available. Not enough starter homes available. It's just a very difficult situation. And this loss is we've not been able to sort of make up for it. So we're still kind of building houses, but we're not building at the rate we need to build them. And this kind of exacerbates the fact that housing prices continue to kind of go up because of, again, demand, but also the fact that there's a supply shortage as well. Home prices are going up both here and nationally, though we've seen some tempering a little bit. Again, interest rates have played a role in the fact that the affordability of housing has gone down for many households. And you can sort of see the 4-year snapshot of what happened. So between 18 and 22, statewide, a 30% increase in home prices. The biggest gain, I believe, was, I want to say, with Comico. And one of the smaller gains was in Howard County. Again, they're rather overpriced houses anyways. I live there. So yeah, I will say that as a Howard County. So what you can generally see that just how much home prices have appreciated. So for many people during the pandemic, they said, I'm out. We made a lot of money on the house, we're going to tap out. And so a lot of us face this. I mean, I face this. I have a team that I just need to figure out, get people, IT especially. That is my tough part, to get good IT workers on my team, between IT security as well as programming. So job openings, most recently shows an increase. We're just over 11 million now. It was just trending under 11 million pre-December. Most recent data shows is at 11 million plus. There's about 1.9 jobs, 1.95 jobs per person looking for work. And again, looking for work. So it doesn't count people who are in the basement playing Call of Duty. It's people actively looking for work. There are more jobs than there are people available. Now, this may be a skills mismatch, so people may not be able to do the job that's required because they don't have the right skills. And again, in Maryland, we face the same thing as well. Again, more job openings than there are unemployed persons. And again, looking at the this graph here, statewide we're about 2.31 jobs per person. It is a bit misleading, and as again, stats, damn lies. Here, in Maryland, if there are more job openings in Howard County, say, for example, we have almost 6.29. A lot of those jobs are in the service, in restaurants, hospitality, and many of the people who live in Howard County work in D.C. or work in an MSA or other places. So those people in Howard County won't be filling the jobs in the restaurant industry, but people in Anne Arundel might drive over the border. People in Baltimore County, Baltimore City, Carroll might all come into Howard County again. Cost of living tends to be higher in Howard, Montgomery, those places, but individuals in those places. So there's a lot of things going on. But generally speaking, we have more job openings than people actively looking for work. Quit rates, people aren't quitting as much. They're slowing down. They're deciding, well, maybe I like my job. This is sort of, I would say, one of the key factors here. So this is the number that says how many people are out of the population age 16 and over are actually working. And again, as I mentioned, prison population, military, guests of the school, all those things don't count. You can sort of see, and that number, so that labor force number, employed plus unemployed, divided by the population age 16 to 64, generally speaking, in Maryland, was almost about 70% pre-pandemic. A significant number. We're hard-working people here in Maryland, compared to the lazy slackasses in the rest of the U.S., 64%. So we're really hard-working people. We're in the labor force. But you can sort of see that we did, the rest of the U.S. and us, we did fall down. So we did lose about 2 to 3 percentage points in labor force participation rate. So if you take basically our labor force, about 2.5 million people, multiplied by 3%, that's a significant number of people missing from our labor force. So they're not available. So when you've got your want ads out, all those things, those individuals are not available to work. They're not wanting to work, they're not looking for work, they're not available. And this is significant. This has long-term impacts for us because it basically means we have to do more with less. So that also means that in some cases we might see more automation, more capital investment, so things that might be more automated will likely be, given the fact that we are challenged with the number of workers we have that are actually working. And again, looking at the labor force by county, so Maryland, we lost about 2.4% labor force participation rate. So we went from 70% plus, or to about 67.6% approximately. And so a significant loss in individuals who are not working in the state. Occupations, of about 130,000 openings, roughly, 50,000 are in the top two of healthcare and IT. So if you're wondering why you can't find a nurse, or you're wondering why you can't find an IT guy, this is why. And this has been ongoing. So I would argue that managers, surprisingly, are in short supply. And George's profession being architecture is also in great demand. But generally speaking, our biggest numbers are in those top three. So just over half are in the top three. So that's what labor shortages look like in Maryland. As I said, we're eds, beds, and feds. You can sort of see, again, top two things are going to be in your government, healthcare, and then professional, scientific, and IT technical services are where your IT guys are. So all your IT companies, lawyers, engineers, firms are going to be there. Retail, trade, and then accommodation and food services are your hotels and restaurants. And again, you can sort of see those are all going to be supporting your eds, meds, beds, and feds. And these are the skills. Now, clearly, number 8 is a skill I have. I know how to operate a ladder. So I'm lucky. I'm the top 10 skills. But generally speaking, these are the skills that we're looking for. You can sort of see that a lot of it is around MS Office, PowerPoint, Word, Excel, but then there are a few other things, motor vehicles. I think I can drive. But, again, questionable. My wife would say otherwise. But generally speaking, you can sort of see there's a mix of IT as well as trades type of focuses here. Am I running out of time? How much? 15. 50. Oh, perfect. So, economic presentation wouldn't be complete without a discussion about climate change. I'm not going to argue the cause, why, what, but we're seeing it, right? So we're seeing both intensity and frequency of natural events. So this graph kind of shows that you can sort of see the number of events that are going on, as well as the costs have been steadily rising since the 80s. So our events are becoming more frequent, and our events are becoming much more destructive. And you can sort of think about that as the fact that we're building houses in areas that are traditionally more prone to these natural events, so therefore they destruct. So you think about Florida most recently, some of the houses weren't there several decades ago, but now they're there. When the hurricanes go through, they knock them out, so that the damage goes up. But we're seeing also the number of events increasing. So we're not only just seeing the fact that we built houses in areas that are prone to these things, but the number of these type of events tend to rise up. Kind of going for, I was just in California over the holiday break, Southern California, so we didn't experience it fully, but we did, obviously see the news coverage of Northern California with the tremendous amount of flooding that took place in a short period of time. Again, looking at some of the hurricanes, tremendous damage. Again, this is a node to California, but generally speaking, the fire season is becoming a fire year, so it's no longer just basically a one-time. Warming weather, again, some people might argue that's great, but the other thing too is that it also introduces non-native species into the area. It also taps into the water supply. Most recently we're seeing some of these challenges on the West Coast or in the western part of the U.S. in terms of the Colorado River running dry, Lake Mead, I'm sure the coverage one has seen in the newspaper. This is for us. So looking at us, so Annapolis. So we all love Annapolis. It's wonderful. And it's the red bar, red bar. But you can sort of see that the daily flooding. These originally were in 20-year increments, and then most recently we did 2010, so 10-year increments. So you can see the number of coastal flooding incidents in Annapolis has increased tremendously over the last couple of decades. So every day there's nuisance flooding, people coming up and saying, the tide's coming in, is causing this flood. And again, for businesses that's a cost because they have to shut down, or they have to get additional insurance, or they have to provide a different type of infrastructure to support all of this.
Right. Thanks.
So, what the future holds. So, I kind of, have I used to do a lot of wonderful, forecast chart, and then it's like, it's too much, because it changes every month. This just keeps me honest, or actually allows me to be dishonest, but while looking honest. Unlike a weather forecaster, it looks like it's going to rain. I could be right half the time. So here we see the headwinds that in the economies that I look at. So we have obviously a continuing war in Ukraine. We know what's going on. Slowing of the world economy, rising interest rates, inflation. We have volatility in the energy markets. We've divided Congress. For us, that's really impactful, right? So a shutdown really impacts Maryland. Not so much the government employees, but some of the individuals who support those government employees. So it's one thing to say, yeah, the government employees will get their paychecks eventually, but the vendor who is there won't get it. And that's lost business. So if they're shut down for a week, that restaurant never gets back that week in business. It's gone for good. That dry cleaner doesn't get back the additional dry cleaning. So that's an impact. Budget impasse. So the debt ceiling is the most, is the closest one to us. Budget impasse, so obviously, come September, we're going to have some arguments. Do we have a continuing resolution? All those kind of things. Supply chain challenges, climate change impacts, more frequent, more severe. I would say for the tailwinds kind of helping us, we're seeing, a strong labor market, rising consumer sentiment, declining gas prices to some degree, and softening home prices. And what does that mean for Maryland? So obviously, as the world goes, Maryland could be impacted. So our port of Baltimore, tremendous amount of volume, but again, if exports go down, that hurt us. If imports go down, that does hurt us. Uncertainty around federal budget, another shutdown. Higher natural gas prices, though we have seen the winter not being as cold, although this Friday will really test our resolve. And I would say labor shortages, hospitality and eating establishments, and those are manifesting in shorter hours. So oftentimes we don't see restaurants perhaps not opening 7 days a week, they're opening 5 days. or 6 days, we're seeing that. Health and transportation also tend to be an issue, and IT workers, they tend to be as valuable as anything. I think that's it. So now I can answer your questions. without breaking my mood. Just kidding.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Going back earlier in the slides, you said something about people. It's harder for people who have children to find daycare or childcare, as it's called. So does that mean is that a shortage of childcare, or is it that these childcare facilities that are currently in place are overrun?
So it's a combination of two things. So we did see a lot of closures during the pandemic of childcare facilities. We did see at some point about a 20% decline, though that number has sort of ticked up. Most recent data, we've seen actually an uptick of childcare providers, but it's taken a while. So one of the challenges that childcare providers face is there's a fixed ratio of aid to number of kids.
Right.
If they can't find the worker, they can't.
That's right.
So that's the other issue, right? So childcare doesn't pay well. It's not a big money industry, and you can make more money in some instances working at Target or Walmart or
Right.
Amazon without less headaches and worry about a kid throwing up on you or some such thing. But generally speaking, that's been a challenge, and you can't really raise rates because then it becomes unaffordable. So it's sort of they're kind of caught in between. And I know that for some individuals, some households, obviously money is no object, but for some households it is a real consideration in terms of deciding childcare. And the state does make available scholarship for households below a certain median income. They have waived co-pays. They're, again, trying to attract as many people in, because, again, this has been the challenge, is getting people in to childcare.
Thank you.
Yes?
Question, of course. In your data, where does skill come into play? We know the jobs, but does the data reflect that folks just don't have the skills? And who sees that? I'm from the school system.
So skills are typically, so they're OJT, and then they're generally, and then they're sort of your specific skills. We're not seeing the unskilled, so high school graduates, again, certifications, can get great jobs in IT. I mean, it doesn't, so we're not seeing the unskilled issues, we're just seeing the availability. So if someone, I don't want to say someone has a heartbeat, and they're good, but again, if they have a heartbeat, no drug convictions, and are drug-free.
And a little bit of skill.
Yeah, a little bit of skill. I mean, so construction, for example, right? So many people will start as a laborer, but there's opportunities in the trades, right? So you can kind of move up, and the question is applying yourself. So I think one of the things is that we're sometimes in the mindset, and I'm from a college, so I'm going to say this a second. Some kids don't need to go to college. Some kids should have an opportunity to go into the trades.
Right.
This is big money. I mean, I will say you can't export jobs in plumbing, electricians, HVAC,
That's right.
outside. These are mechanics, like auto mechanics. Like, I wish I listened to my dad being a mechanic because,
You have to take a selfie after this answer.
but they're really, really good. I would argue that those are, because again, we do need those types of jobs, and those are important. Those are great on-ramps into other things.
Right.
Some people don't go to college, they become a good trade, then they want to go back get their business administration degree because they want to open a business. I don't understand. That's a great path. Again, we want to make sure there are multiple paths, so it's not 18 to 22-year-olds. And as someone who's taught adult learners, the adult learners, they want to be there. The 18 to 22-year-olds, they're like, mom and dad, here we go.
Right.
And they're no fun. They're haters.
Can I piggyback on that comment real quick, to that statement? I just want to say that one of the agendas with our current governor, he's talked about the mismatch of the skill set when I attended a recent event, but he was talking about that pathway where high schoolers are having the trades that they have opportunity to, but instead of them waiting until they're 18 to get out of school, we need to fast track them earlier on in school, so by the time they're graduated, they can enter the workforce right away. So it would bridge that gap where the skill set is missing. So I think that's a great initiative.
Yeah, they force everybody into IT. Everything's became STEM.
I think
So
that was a great initiative and plan that could be put in place to fast track that pathway where there's the gap in missing the skill set. It wasn't my idea, but I think it's an idea to share that.
Not his idea.
It is a European model. So oftentimes we'll start with 16 plus and they'll go into the apprenticeship programs. which are great.
It worked out for Wes.
Yeah.
I mean, he did that.
Yeah.
To your school and
Yeah.
the military.
I just want to add on to that, the state is working with the apprenticeship program now, getting students. I'm an apprenticeship developer. I'm a retired teacher, came back to work with apprenticeships. But I see we still need to change the mindset of parents and high school educators
That's
in
right.
saying, not everybody's going to college, and that it's okay not to take an AP class and to take a
Not
skills
one of those,
course.
not one of those jobs you set up there.
I mean, the mindset
combined
is
with
just
the
not
AP
there.
course.
And that's what's
That's a
sad.
very good point.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
Sorry.
So there was a news story that came out on CBS last week where they were saying that 7 million men, able-bodied men between the ages of 19 and 49 have just dropped out of the workforce. And it's a trend. And so you're not a sociologist, but from an economic point of view, what's the why behind this? Is this the pandemic that like broke people's spirit? Is this a generational thing? Is the American work ethic changing? Like what is happening that it's okay for somebody to sit on their couch in the basement and play Call of Duty and not be gainfully employed? And there's literally nothing wrong with your body.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't have a pithy answer for that. But you know, the challenge we face, we've seen this drop off in labor force participation rate. We've seen the missing men. So right now we're all seeing missing men in college. So the college enrollment has gone way down amongst men. So I don't know what's happening amongst my gender. I don't know what we're doing. You know.
What's wrong with you guys?
Exactly. I don't know. I can't answer that. I don't speak for all men. But, you know, so I'm really, there's not, I haven't really studied that issue, so I can't really give you a good answer that would sort of be qualified.
Question, yeah, so with the unemployment rate, I know that can be misleading. Is there a data point that kind of reflects the aggregate, I guess, group of people that are actually employed, period? So I guess that's my first question. My second question is to follow up on Mr. Carrington's question earlier about the military. So I know you walked us through GDP with the consumption plus investment, government spending, export. Is the military salaries, is that gathered in the government spending piece?
Yes.
Okay, all right, cool. So then it evens out.
So the labor force participation rate is a good way of capturing sort of how involved people are in the labor force. Because labor force is people who are employed plus people who are unemployed. And to be unemployed, you're actively looking for work. So, you know, you could be looking for work and, you know, you've quit one job, starting a new job.
Right.
That's unemployment. There's also the gap, right? So some people will quit a job and then maybe a month later start their new job. Well, that gap, they're also considered to be unemployed. So there is that frictional unemployment where people are sort of in between jobs. They have a job lined up, they just are going to be, you know, taking a month off or whatever, the transition, moving from North Carolina to Baltimore, say, for example, those type of things where that happens. So that's considered to be frictional unemployment. Structural unemployment is considered to be like, for example, your skills mismatch. So you have people who are well versed in steel making here in Baltimore, but there's no steel making, but you have to go to Ohio. But you can't move to Ohio because you live in Baltimore. So that's oftentimes the structural unemployment, and the cyclical unemployment is sort of the business cycle. So we have a boom in the economy, it goes down. We have a bust in the economy, it goes up.
So is there a data point that captures all of that?
Well, I just mentioned, I think labor force participation rate is probably a good measure because that really says how attached people are to the labor force. And that's really your measure. You can see that number has gone down. Yes, ma'am.
Just real quick, I just wanted to kind of ask, how is pay disparity accounted for in all of this? Because you have a lot of working professionals, especially millennials, who want to work, who want to make a change and all that stuff, but they literally can't with, you know, the like debt percentages going up and just overall cost of living. You know, if you have a job that's paying $15 an hour, I literally can't afford to leave my home for those types of employment opportunities. So how do we account for like wage disparity and pay gaps?
So those data are not captured here. We do know that amongst young people, they do carry more debt than, say, your older household, because again, graduating college is one of the bigger burdens for many people. It's non-dischargeable, so you're stuck with it for the rest of your life. But we're also not seeing basically some of the entry-level, you know, jobs and the cost of living, right? So the other challenge that you mentioned, right? So the starting wage that I may have gotten might have allowed me to live in an apartment way back when.
Right.
Now it's near impossible.
The average working person can't can't afford to go to school and pay for themselves and, you know, God forbid, have children.
Right.
So it's just like, you know, in those spaces, you know, $18 paying position just kind of doesn't cut it. So am I a lazy millennial for not taking $18 and increasing my debt?
You're playing Call of Duty. What are you talking about? Should be playing Call of Duty with the rest of them.
Playing Call of Duty.
Not Call of Duty. No, I mean, and, you know, again, it goes back to the, you know, think about the cost of living, right? So one of the biggest expenditures is your house, housing.
Yeah.
So if all of a sudden we didn't build enough houses, you know, we're kind of paying for that price now that we didn't build as many housing units, both rental and for purchase. And that's really driving up some of the rents and other things that are going on in the U.S., which basically means an 18-hour a job, you couldn't do it. When I was in college, minimum wage paid my yearly tuition over the summer. There's no way anybody can do that now.
That's a big part of kind of what is leaving a bad taste in the working class now, right? When we were growing up, we were able to get an apartment, have a car, and eat more than ramen.
Right.
You know, these days, like, as me, a recent graduate, I have debt, I have a mortgage, I have a car, and I still have to go out here and make a living for myself. So I think that at some point, there should be some sort of resource that kind of puts more effort into that space, because if we highlight, okay, I literally can't do it, and not that I don't want to do it, I think that we would see some different results here. Just my thoughts.
Yeah, no.
Good point.
Final question?
I just want to validate a couple things. My name is Jim Russell. I'm with North American Millwright. We're an industrial maintenance company. 10 years ago, we had 25 employees. We're up to 140 employees. We have 3 locations. We have welders, plumbers, and the salaries range from $50,000 to over 6 digits. We're in high demand. I can use 30 to 40 more people right now. So we work in manufacturing plants. To your point about the culture, I do job fairs at different high schools in Baltimore County, and I love a parent that comes up to me and says, my child is not meant to go to college. What can you do? And we're in part of the apprentice program with Capstone. So to your point, industrial is the way to go now. The child is not meant for college.